Hello, thanks for joining me. My name is Chris Bass, and I'm the philosophy teacher here at Lyons Township High School. And so thanks for stopping by for a few minutes. We got 10 minutes to talk about the class. I will say that it is a variety of things in this class. We are reading material, we are watching YouTube videos, we are doing meditations, we are having Socratic seminars the best we can, all of those things via e-learning. So let me share my screen with you, and I will dive into the PowerPoint, which will walk us through some key things of the class. Here we go. Okay, so welcome to Philosophy, and you'll see probably one of the most famous paintings there, the School of Athens. It's always, you can see it's behind me right there too. It's always the starting point for our class. You've got Plato and Aristotle right in the center. You've got tons of classical philosophers surrounding them, and this is always where we begin the semester, talking about classical philosophy, questioning what we see, playing with the depth of this painting. And in many ways, this painting functions as kind of a metaphor for the kind of things, the questions we ask, the people we explore, the larger questions that kind of frame where we're going. So I always like to mention School of Athens. It's on the cover of our Canvas page too. So we'll talk a little bit about me. We'll talk about key questions of the class. We'll talk about units of learning, Canvas, and then we'll talk about this school year. It's very possible we won't get through all those things in 10 minutes, but this is the plan. So we'll see the best we can do in the time we got. So one of the things I know people are usually interested in when it comes to the open house is who is this guy that shows up every day to teach this class called philosophy? So here's some background about me. I went to Millikan University, which is a small liberal arts school in central Illinois that had around 2,000 people in it. So roughly the size of just North Campus alone. I was a swimmer. I swam all through college. I was an academic All-American athlete, but also I was a French and English major, both in French literature and English literature. I did my teaching preparation and student training through the University of Chicago, a program down in Hyde Park. And then I worked in Chicago public schools. I taught in various rural and suburban schools, and ultimately ended here at Lyons Township High School. Then quite quickly after that, I started my master's in English studies, at Middlebury College in Vermont. So the way that this program worked is for 4 years, I would teach here, and then like a day after school got out here for summer break, I packed up my car, sublet my apartment, and I drove out to Vermont, where I studied for the summer. And then about a few days before school started, I would pack up my car from Vermont, drive back to the apartment, and come back to LT. So I got my master's in English literature from Middlebury College, which led me to studying in Oxford, England, as well as out in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And then also I am currently pursuing my PhD at the University of Illinois, Chicago, also in English studies. My focus is in disability studies, critical literacy, and English pedagogy. I hate to jinx myself, but I am wrapping up my dissertation now. I'm in the 140s range of page count. So hopefully I can defend it this fall and graduate this winter. We'll see what happens. So I've been teaching in LT for roughly more than 10 years. I've also taught at Purdue University, and I've taught courses at UIC as well. For Purdue, I was teaching students who were Purdue students learning remotely in Chicago. I was a remote instructor in Chicago. So some key questions that we explore in this class of philosophy are there on the screen, and then you'll notice the thinker as well, the famous sculpture by Rodin. So some key questions that we are currently exploring are, what is philosophy? What is a philosopher? I should stress that I really try to let the questions guide what we do in the class and what we discuss, and even what we read. I really believe that an elective course like this, where you have students willingly signing up to explore the idea of philosophy, demands that the kids get an opportunity to have a say in what they want to explore and how we want to discuss it. So these are the questions I always set up on. These are our curriculum map questions. Really, ultimately, it depends on the class and the kind of community that we are able to establish. We're currently exploring what is philosophy. We are getting into the idea of what is a philosopher. The students are reading Plato. We're looking at Socrates. We just talked about Socrates. We're into Plato now. We'll get to Aristotle. And then the students will do their own classical philosopher research project, where we will kind of broaden the range of scope of philosophy and the work being done. Classical philosophy way back thousands of years ago. And then we bring those ideas that these philosophers are talking about thousands of years ago into the present. And we'll ask questions like, well, who am I today? And what is the meaning of life? That constant question. What is the nature of the external world? Is there a difference between what we claim to believe and what we claim to know? What is knowledge? Big questions that kind of guide the kind of work we do. And so these big questions work into these units of learning. So these big questions kind of fit into these subtopics, you could say. Why am I here? Philosophy as love for questions. That's what we're looking at right now. And then quite quickly after you're watching this, towards the mid to end of September, we'll get into goodness versus badness, ethics. And we'll dive into the world of ethics. So in that context, we'll be reading philosophers from a long time ago, Aristotle, all the way through more contemporary philosophers, about modern philosophers into the 50s, right? So mid-century. So we don't go chronologically. This class is designed to explore topics and then explore philosophers and ideas that range in age. I think this is a more engaging way to ask questions, and it makes philosophy more relevant because it allows us to cut and pick interesting ideas and interesting works into better context than just studying and memorizing a bunch of people chronologically, which is a more traditional way of doing an intro to philosophy class. So about mid-October, we'll get out of ethics, and we'll get into the cracks in our foundations, ideologies, and terms. What is the self? What is a being? What are our rights? Those are essential questions that we want to understand and define so that we can get into Unit 4, which is a tricky, fascinating conversation. More than a village or city, political philosophy. Again, political philosophy, that's different than political science. It asks these larger questions of what does it mean to control? What does it mean to lead? And again, we'll explore a wide range, a lot of Enlightenment thinkers, certainly, but also a wide range of philosophy. From there, we get, depending on time and where we are in the world of Zoom and COVID, we've got these final 3 units. What is the deal with God, religious philosophy? LTHS, democracy and education, American pragmatism, and finally, breaking down truth, postmodernism, post-structuralism. Those 3 final units really depend on how much time we have left, how much interest the students have, so that we can always want to make this class to be engaging, which leads us to the next idea, I believe, the structure. So on Mondays, we have a 35-minute period. I should say, so I meet with your students 3 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays. That's when our philosophy class meets. Mondays is a synchronous class at the beginning, and then ultimately, they're doing independent reading. I always do independent reading on Mondays with all the students, all the philosophy students. So Mondays are our independent reading days. Wednesdays begin with philosophy quote of the week, where we get a quote, we discuss and explore the thinker and the ideas behind the quote. And then Fridays are meditation Fridays, where I post a video on YouTube because we're doing Zoom. And so we talk a little bit about how to, breathing, posture, meditation. So Mondays are independent reading days, Wednesdays are quote days, and Fridays are meditation days. So that's kind of how we begin each class. Then on Wednesdays and Fridays, when we have the larger 75-minute class periods, that's the kind of stuff we're doing there on the screen. We take about a 5-minute break somewhere in the day, but we'll do breakout rooms, Google Forms, direct instruction, full class brainstorming, group discussion, drafting, think, pair, shares. We've literally done all those things several times already this year. So really trying to break down the 75 minutes to make it engaging, to give the students a break, to respect their time, but also to take the full amount of time because there is a lot to discuss. And so 75 minutes is an ideal opportunity to do philosophy because you can have the time to discuss and let questions kind of wander as they may when you're trying to do a Socratic seminar. These students also have a commonplace book. So a lot of the work that they do in the class is done in what we are now calling a commonplace book. It's similar to what we would typically have as a composition book or a class journal. It is a very long Google Doc. They created and shared it with me on the first day of class. And it is holistic grading with the formative benchmarks on a 1 to 3 scale. We've reviewed the rubric, which I've posted on Canvas. All the work being done in class, as well as much of the work being done out of the class, occurs in this document, our commonplace document. This allows for synchronous oversight and feedback from me during instruction, even when the students are working independently. So sometimes they may get 20 minutes to explore a question. And what they are doing is they would be exploring that question in the commonplace book where I can be giving them feedback live as they are thinking quietly themselves. So kind of an interesting way of doing e-learning is this kind of synchronous independent work, which the Commonplace book affords. So that's all the time we got right now. I'm already over the 10 minutes. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you for checking out Philosophy. Please feel free to email me with any questions or concerns, and maybe we'll talk in the future. Thank you very much. Have a good night.